Hey guys, Alex from Board Game Co over here, and before we get into today's video, which you already know what it's about because of that fun little title, we're going to talk about my scheduling, my video scheduling, what I do, how often I do it, why I do it that often, etc. Now, more specifically, when I first started this channel, I aimed for videos, just here and there enough to keep it active. Since then, I've had so many things I want to talk about, so many Kickstarters I want to cover, so many top 10 lists I want to do, so many different things, both viewer requests as well as my own content that I want to put out myself, that I started doing every other day. And right now, with everything going on with all these Kickstarters, I can barely keep up with that. Between the once a week or so roundups, the Kickstarters coming out every single day, the other videos, once every other day just isn't giving me the opportunity to cover the amount of things I want to cover while keeping up to date. So right now, I've changed my schedule a bit to every other day plus as often as I need to cover the content, but I'm still trying to limit it to at least to not more than once a day. I don't want to have a situation where you have 13 videos a day from me, so I'm going to try to limit it to once a day. But if you have any opinions, if you don't mind seeing the videos, let me know. If you think it's too much and you'd rather paced out, let me know that too. I want to go for that balance of being able to talk about all the things that I want to cover, but at the same time, I don't want to overload you. If you feel if you're feeling that itchy trigger finger to unsubscribe because there's too many videos, please let me know. I'm trying to strike a balance, but I don't know what works for you. I can only really do what works for myself on my end until I have your feedback. Now, with that out of the way, we're going to cover Tanares Adventures. Tanares Adventures is the latest Kickstarter from Dragori Games. Dragori Games did Arena the contest a while ago, over a year ago. It was a pretty successful Kickstarter back then, and then once it hit and once it started getting that critical acclaim, that feedback from customers who seemed to just love it, gamers were really enjoying the game for what it was. And so not surprisingly, I mean, Kickstarters these days tend to have follow-ups even before people have a chance to really try and experience the game, and in this case they definitely had a follow-up in the works, and they launched Tanares Adventures, which is basically just more of a focus. It's more of the same, but with a higher focus on PvE, player versus environment. So higher focus on the cooperative gameplay and the campaign aspect of Tanares Adventures, of Arena the Contest, as opposed to the original game, which focused, the pitch of the original game was more of a 4v4 or 2v2 or whatever it is, or 8v, I don't think it's 8v8, but 4v4, whatever it was. So a large epic scale player versus player campaign where each person, not campaign, game where each person takes heroes and then with their hero abilities fight it out over on a map. I'll scroll down to a basic map situation here if we can get past all this hordes of good content here. It's too hard to find. There we go. So we have this board over here. This is actually one of the add-on boards, but you have this board over here that you can have a campaign, a single play where you fought other players on this map. And that seemed to be the higher focus of the original game. But when it hit, and I did another video on this, I did a few videos on this kind of, I didn't focus on the Kickstarter and should you back it, but I did talk about the game. But when it hit, the critical acclaim seemed to come far more from the actual campaign game that the game had, which, while it had a lot of things that I would consider not nearly as fleshed out as other games, it had so many aspects of it that it did well, that it did right, that people thoroughly enjoyed it. It had some weaknesses in terms of the AI was lacking. There wasn't really a host of miniatures or unique characters that you were fighting on the other side. But the interplay of your heroes itself was so compelling. People enjoyed it so much that the strengths of the game overcame the weaknesses. The strengths, the parts where Arena shun, completely overcame those aspects of the PvE that were a little bit lacking, that were not as up to par as other epic games in the genre, such as Gloomhaven, Sword and Sorcery, Too Many Bones. I mean, those games all have far better AI, far more compelling enemies, and Arena the Contest did not, but it did have an incredible roster of heroes that just played phenomenally well, and the interplay between those abilities really felt well done. This is possibly one of the better games, I would say, in terms of my personal experience of seeing those heroes do their various abilities, take their actions, and play off each other. The sequence of which hero activates in what order and does what really mattered in this game. And they'd have an ability that would push an enemy one space over, and another guy would push them this way, and you'd push them to the fire while you knocked them. They just had a very well done sequencing of the way all the abilities played off. Now, at the basic level, I'm not going to cover this too much. I'm not going to cover the gameplay a significant amount. As you know, this channel is generally, when I talk about Kickstarters, I talk more about whether it's a good buy, whether it's something that's a safe place to put your money in, and whether it makes sense from that. I will cover the game in brief, and I'll cover my own thoughts in brief. But if you want to establish whether the game is more to your taste, I do recommend other channels that will go into a lot more detail and a lot more aspects that I kind of just touch upon. But that being said, my personal opinion is I love this game. I mean, I was all in on this game because my biggest thing with Kickstarters is I want to make sure there's a good value proposition, and I want to make sure I'm mitigating my risk. But because I loved the original game, the mitigation of risk part was out of the picture. Meaning there is still a discussion as to whether I'm paying more now than I would after the fact, but at least the risk mitigation is gone because I already love the game. Granted, it's not perfectly gone. Expansions can be just clutter and bloat and other things, but from my personal opinion of the way I collect games, and while I'm incredibly cutthroat with which games I want to keep, I am very lax with which expansions I get. Once I like a game, I tend to go all in it. I tend to get everything. Some of that stuff will sit on my shelf unplayed for years, but that leeway I allow. I mean, I have Terraforming Mars with 1 expansion that I've played and 4 expansions in the box that I've gotten them as they've come out, and that's a true thing. I've had 7 Wonders cities in my collection since I had 7 Wonders. I've had 7 Wonders cities, but I've only played the 7 Wonders and leaders. I haven't touched cities, so I do allow myself that leeway. But in terms of the value proposition, let's get into it. So off the bat, let's cover that risk mitigation part because that's important. Like I said, for myself, the risk mitigation is there. It was gone because I already like the game, and that's true when you're evaluating this buy as well. Because of the fact that this is a re-Kickstarter, an expansion Kickstarter to an already well-received game, you know it's a good game that has an audience. It may not be to your taste, but it is to many others' taste. It's definitely a game that many people will enjoy, many people have liked, and that takes a big part of the risk mitigation away. One of the things I've talked about regularly is when you get a Kickstarter, I do encourage you, assuming you care about making your money back, or assuming you care about how much money you've spent, I do encourage people to play those Kickstarters as soon as possible. Because if you play a new Kickstarter, just hit let's say Bloodborne, when it comes from Cool Mini or Not, I'm going to be trying to play that game as soon as possible, because if I don't like it, I can establish that fairly quickly and turn around and sell it at a decent price while the demand is still there, before I run the risk of possibly others deciding as a whole that it's just an okay game. In general, that's the case. With Arena, that's not necessarily the case because, like I said, this game's been around, people like it, people enjoy it. You don't have to rush to play it right away before too many people find out it's not great. So you have that safety net. At the same time, that doesn't mean it's a good buy. That doesn't mean it's a good buy. That doesn't mean the value proposition is there. And just because it's a good safety net does not mean you can't get it later for cheaper. One of the things I talked about in a lot of my videos is the fact that I am very interested in many games. I'm very intrigued by the concept of many games. Sometimes you have reviewers who say the game's great, but it doesn't mean it's a good price point. So let's talk about Arena. Is it a good price point? Is it not? Now this is going to require a bit of a tangent to devolve into the pledge levels, which we'll cover now. So starting off the bat, we have the very first pledge level past, the intro $5 pledge is $69, new backers, core box only. This is an amazing buy. I will tell you right now, if you are on the fence, buy this. Done. Over $69, even once you account for the shipping costs. This is giving you this is giving you a price point akin to a typical Cool Mini or Not game at retail, a Zombicide, Arcadia Quest, but with far more content, and it's a great game. I mean, don't get me wrong, many of those are too, but this is a great game with far more content at an incredibly well done price point. When I saw this, honestly, I was a little jealous that I already had the base game, so I had no reason to buy it again. From there, next up, we have $99 for Tanares Adventures. This gives you the expansion of Tanares Adventures along with redone heroes. Now, that's something I haven't talked about yet, but if you got the original Kickstarter, whether you acquired it secondhand, whether you backed it yourself, they came with reworked miniatures. I'm not going to scroll down. I don't want to lose my place over here. Actually, you know what? I could scroll down because they keep different pledge levels. But I want to see an example of their before and after. But they had, here we go, here's an example, and honestly I don't think this is the best example, and I'll get into why, but they had pretty poorly done sculpts in the original Kickstarters. That was one of the weak points of the game. It was, oh wow, these miniatures are kind of crappy, but it's a great game and that's worth it. And they heard that feedback and they acknowledged that feedback, and so they switched to a new production company that's used by Cool Mini or Not, by Awakened Realms, and they put new sculpts together. Now they did comment, you might look at this and say, well, this guy kind of looks overdone. They did comment on that, about how they know that, they're aware of that. It's part of the process in terms of you lose some of the miniature quality when you sculpt it, so you kind of have to overdo it and see what happens. Now, I'm not sure. I don't know anything about miniature sculpts. I don't know about what's going on. All I really know is they seemed fairly confident that round 2 was going to be better than round 1, and they seem like a group of people that care. I'm pretty sure they're going to want to make sure they get that. They made a whole big selling point of the new miniatures, the better miniatures, and the reworked miniatures. It would kind of suck for them if they got it wrong round 2, and they seem to care. They're great. I've communicated directly with some of the people from the company. It seems like they seem like, I'm pretty sure they're gonna get it right. That's what it comes down to. I can't guarantee it, no guarantees, but I'm pretty sure you're gonna have better miniatures. So yes, so Tanares Adventures will give you $99. It'll give you the 40 gorgeous miniatures, including heroes from the new thingy, plus Arena's core box. But sorry, 1 second. Yeah, so it gives you the Arena core box and Tanares Adventures. At 168, we get Tanares Adventures plus the Dragon Collection. Now, this is a big deal. These are a whole bunch of dragons, which, let me find if I can find them. Here we go. Here are the dragons. And these are some great sculpts. And honestly, even from the first campaign, their larger miniatures were much better. But if you take a look over here, you have this guy over here. Gigantic, freaking cool. This one, another one, another one, another one. This is just a set of amazing dragons. And this is... I mean, if you like miniature porn, this is miniature porn right here. A whole bunch of cool dragons you can sit around, put on your table, and paint them or play with them. And then from there, we have the unpainted all-in at 215, and the new backers core box bundle 235. And I'm trying to find the unpainted. Where's the dragons? Cosmetic plus all-in pledge. Okay, this is giving you painted dragons, painted miniatures that will give you, it basically gives you all the dragons, but all the bosses, but also painted. Now, there are a lot of pledge levels, and I don't want to overly dive into each one because each one could be its own, 4 or 5 minute segment on them. What I will say is this. I'm going to break this down into painted versus unpainted. The unpainted stuff is a very solid safe back. I have no qualms whatsoever about saying that if you back this, you will see your money back. You may have to, you may not be able to dump it on eBay in 2 seconds and get whatever. But if you put in, let's say you pay $200 plus $30 shipping, $230. If you ask for $230 plus shipping, you will get that back. Again, not a guarantee. I can't make guarantees, but I am sure of it. You will see your money back. You might have to be a little patient, but give it a few days, a few weeks, maybe a month. You will see someone who's willing to pay what you paid plus shipping again, even if you've opened it. This is a safe back in terms of what you can get here. In general, before we get to painted, more is better. There are going to be more copies of Arena of the Contest core available than Arena of the Contest plus Tanares Adventures. The more you have, to a certain extent, the safer it'll be. That doesn't necessarily apply to optional buys. Optional buys are always a little trickier, but to a certain extent, that's true. The painted part is where things get a little tricky. In terms of the painted, the first caveat is it very much depends on what quality these guys are. If the painted miniatures are not done well, then you paid a lot of money and you're going to have a hard time seeing the return. That is what it is. It's unfortunate. It's the risk you take with, in general, painted miniatures in games aren't done that often for a reason, because you usually cannot offer an affordable, you usually can't offer that hybrid of affordable and good enough. It's usually either a little more on the crappy side or very much not on the affordable side. And so you're going to be taking that risk here. And that is, it's a risk you have to decide whether you want to take yourself. If you stick around to the end of the video, I'll tell you what I backed. By the way, I'll tell you what I did. So that is a risk. It is very much a risk to get the painted stuff. I do recommend it if you already like, I shouldn't even say that. Whether you like the game or whether you're reselling it, it is a risk that you have to take. You may end up with a bunch of painted miniatures that you may have to strip or figure out some way around it. So take that with a grain of salt. I don't really know what I can say in terms of that. There's no real... It's something I struggled for a long time. When I was back in this game, and I was back in this game, I did back it, I'm all in. I went back and forth multiple times between painted and unpainted. I started with the painted, started with all that. But one thing worth noting, by the way, this is a very important point. You do have to get the Dragon Collection, painted or unpainted, if you want to get all the miniatures reworked from the original campaign. Alternatively, you can buy them as an optional buy in the Pledge Manager. So factor that into your decision. If you have all the stretch goals, if you want all the stuff, if you have the original first campaign with all the extras, you kind of probably do want to go for the Dragon Collection in this one, because the alternative is buying those heroes, at which point it's basically a discount on the Dragon Collection. So I was all in on that, and my question wasn't Dragon Collection versus not, my question was painted or not. And I started with the Dragon Collection, I upgraded to the painted, I went back down, I upgraded again. In the end, at the last minute, I did go for painted. The pictures they were showing were a drop too tempting. Let me see if I could find one. I mean, they have this guy. By the way, this miniature looks freaking cool. I hope it's half as awesome as it looks here. I'm trying to see if I can find a painted picture of it. Sorry, I paused the video so I could find it without scrolling everywhere. It was one of the updates. But this is that guy painted, which I think is pretty boss. They have some more miniatures. This Titan Ultimate Boss, which is one of the last bosses that was unlocked. They have over here the Queen. Again, cool miniature. They're delivering a lot of content, and all those bosses will be painted. At the very end, towards the end of the campaign, like literally the last day, I upgraded to the painted thing. I decided to take that risk. I do firmly believe it is a risk, and you all have to decide for yourselves what you want to do. But that's sort of it. Tanares Arena of the Contest and Tanares Adventures specifically is what I would consider a very safe back. This is a game where you will likely see your money back. The only real risk here is painted collection or unpainted collection. If you're someone who paints your own minis, that's not even a conversation. You're going unpainted. That's easy. If you're someone who doesn't paint, or like myself, someone who does paint but doesn't paint nearly as much as I have miniatures and have time for, also I'm scared of those big guys. I paint small miniatures. I'm scared of painting something big right now. But in any case, if you're in that selection of people, that's going to be the hardest decision you have to make here. Past that, I highly recommend Tanares Adventures. I highly recommend it as a game. I highly recommend it as a safe back. I highly recommend it something you'll get your money back on. And double that. If you've watched my video on Gloomhaven and other epic campaign games where I talk about the sprawling nature of all these games we're letting ourselves get sunk into, one of the things I love about Arena of the Contest is you don't have to play it as a giant sprawling adventure campaign. You could play one-shot adventures and just have a blast here and there. You don't have to sink yourself into that. Now that's true of any of these games. Gloomhaven, you can play one game at a time. But I would argue Gloomhaven is designed to be played over multiple scenarios. It's designed to give you that encompassing feel. Versus Arena of the Contest, you can have a one-shot co-op mission just as easily as you can have that campaign. You'll be missing out on certain elements of the narrative branching and the choices you make having consequences, but if you don't have time for 100 plus hours of gameplay, or you're playing, or like myself, you're playing other games and you don't know when you will put that 100 hours aside for this specific one, you can enjoy it piecemeal, one game at a time, while you learn the mechanics, while you learn the characters, get a feel for what you like most, and it really does give you everything. It gives you one shot, it gives you campaign, it gives you great gameplay. Like I said, Tanares is focusing very heavily on that PvE. It's focusing heavily on more nuanced enemies, better AI, better miniature production quality. Arena of the Contest and Tanares Adventures is a safe back. I highly recommend it. Until next time, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm Alex from Board Game Co. You can subscribe down below, like this video, comment, let people know what you're going for in the pledge manager down below. I mean, in the end, I ended up going for the double boards, both as in terms of optional buys. I went for the double boards from this campaign, the double boards from the original campaign. I skipped on the dice. I didn't feel the need for a bunch of D20. I'd rather get my own custom marble D20. I skipped on the plastic token pack because I personally don't enjoy plastic token packs. I've yet to really, I kind of enjoy the cardboard more. Maybe I don't know why they're so popular, but I guess everyone has their own taste, so I don't like plastic token packs. But anyways, that's it. That's my 2 cents. That's my take on Arena of the Contest. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, have a good one.